Physician-assisted suicide and euthanasia frequently asked questions. Question 2. In a society where we place high value on freedom and individual choice, why don't we allow people to choose the time and manner of their death? The notion that assisted suicide or voluntary euthanasia should be left up to individual choice is instinctively compelling to us. After all, what right do we have to tell someone how to live or die? In order to understand the pitfalls of this line of reasoning, we need to begin by analyzing how people make decisions. Decades of research into the psychology of persuasion and how we make decisions has given us valuable insights into the complex factors involved in what we call choice. While we don't know everything about how or why we make certain decisions, we do know that our choices are not 100% autonomous, but rather are highly influenced by outside forces. As for how this could play out if assisted suicide becomes legal and acceptable in Canada, take the case of Catherine Judson, a resident of Oregon, where assisted suicide has been legal for over 15 years. Her husband had an incurable condition and was visiting a physician for an exam. During the exam, Catherine overheard her husband receiving, in her own words, a sales pitch for assisted suicide. The doctor pressed her husband. "Think of what it will spare your wife. We need to think of her," he argued. Subtle influences, and in this case, not so subtle influences, can have a real impact on what choices we make, especially when they come from trusted authorities like physicians. In this case, his wife overheard, immediately removed her husband from the situation, and the two of them enjoyed 5 more years together. Had Catherine been absent from this situation, it is quite possible the physician would have succeeded in persuading this man to end his life. Catherine's example is not extraordinary. As our population ages, we have become very well acquainted with the phenomenon of elder abuse. We now know that elderly individuals are uniquely susceptible to outside pressures and are routinely taken advantage of by caregivers and loved ones. When suicide becomes a socially acceptable way to end one's life, how will we protect seniors, especially those who already feel like they are a burden, from feeling obligated to die and being pressured into an untimely assisted death? And it's not only our dependent seniors who will find themselves in a much more vulnerable position. Take the example of Belgian man Tom Mortier. In 2012, he received a message at work informing him that his 64-year-old mother had been granted a medically assisted death the previous day. Tom was horrified and confused. He never dreamt his mother would be a candidate for assisted dying because she was in perfect physical health, but he was wrong. Her mental health, in this case, a severe depression, was all the justification the physicians needed to grant her request to die. Instead of treating his depressed, suicidal mother, the physician helped her end her life, and what he did was no different than pushing a suicidal jumper off a bridge. Technically, it was her choice, but sometimes not having a choice can actually protect us from ourselves. These two real-life examples illustrate the complex factors involved in so-called individual choice, and the very real pitfalls inherent in changing attitudes and laws to permit assisted suicide and euthanasia in Canada. Taylor Hyatt is a young disabled student at Carleton University in Ontario, and she knows the hazards in this line of thinking all too well. Her insights in this matter are instructive. Rather than focusing on dying with dignity, she says, society should make sure that equal opportunities to thrive and live with dignity are the first option presented. When death is presented as a viable alternative to living, those with disabilities will invariably be more vulnerable to that option. Our choices have profound consequences on others, and in the case of physician-assisted suicide and euthanasia, those consequences could be lethal. Want to know more? Visit www.advocatelife.com.